Hello everyone, welcome back to Primal Prepper. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I've only done one of them so far, but I'm now starting to do the second one. So what are the disasters? What are the things that you could be prepping for? And today we're doing tsunamis. Okay, I know maybe you live in a place and you think, I'm not going to get hit by a tsunami. I don't have any earthquake zones near me which can create a tsunami. Well, all you really need is a body of water. Okay, if you're near a big lake, if you're near a small sea, there's plenty of them. I think there's some stupid calculus of 80, 85, 90% of humanity lives along a river or coastline somewhere. You're susceptible. Okay, doesn't have to be the Pacific Ocean, doesn't have to be the Atlantic Ocean. It could be the North Sea, it could be the Dead Sea, it could be the Red Sea, it could be anywhere. It could be the Great Lakes in America. All you need is a big body of water, a deep body of water. It doesn't have to be big, even it could be Loch Ness, okay? Not very wide, you can see one side of it to the other, you can see from one end to the other. But if a huge landslide fell down there, displaced the water, then you're looking at a tsunami. Probably enough to break out either end of Loch Ness and probably do a lot of damage on the other side of that rather narrow channel. So let's have a think about what sort of things can cause tsunamis. The first obvious one is an earthquake. When you have an earthquake, it can create a tsunami. Now, a lot of earthquakes, they slip. The plates are like that and they just move like that. Not a problem. Doesn't really displace much water. Displace, yeah. But every now and then you get an earthquake. What does that or that? Okay, so if the earthquake does that, it pushes a load of water. All the water on this side goes up and moves out because it wants to level out. Water always wants to be level. So basically, the water goes up and that way. Now, while it does that, yeah, it makes a big hole, big air pocket there as well, where there's no water. And this side of the water goes down and in. Now, this is what creates some of the well-known signs of tsunamis. The water drawing out of the beaches when you see like all the fish flapping around on the beach in the films. Okay, and that's because that water is pouring into a great big hole first and then sloshing back towards you. That's why you get this warning sign of the water receding from the coastline and then the tidal wave comes in. Now, sometimes you don't get the warning. The other side, that side where all the water's gone up and over, that's just a big tidal wave coming. No warning, no drawing the water out first. It's just coming in as a big wave. Okay, so the other thing what can create tsunamis are volcanic eruptions, either under the water themselves. Okay, if you think you've got a big volcano shape like that and the top half of it erupts and it ends up like that, again, displacement of water. Not just a displacement of water, probably an evaporation of some water as well, which it all disappears up into steam as the volcano erupts and it explodes from the top of the wherever. And again, all the water rushes in. Now, this will cause all the water rushing into the hole all the way around it, which means it doesn't matter what side of it you're on, you'll be getting the drawing out of the coastlines first before you're coming back. So you get a little bit of a warning with them. Now, landslides are another way, as I mentioned on the whole Loch Ness fear, like scenario. Yeah, we can have landslides. Now, again, you got the sea like that, and you got a big load of. Well, let's use one of my tarot decks. Okay, and you have that, and all that goes under there, making a void. Yeah, in this particular case, it's like that wide, and all that water rushes in behind it, and as it goes down, it gets sucked down, rushing more and more water in behind it. So again, this will make a tsunami because there's a displacement of water. The water rushes in to replace that displacement, yeah, and then it has to go somewhere. So it draws some water out from this side, and it goes down the hole, and then it rushes back out. Now, again, you might be thinking, well, yeah, I'm in a tectonically safe zone. I haven't got any volcanoes near me. I'm okay. I'm good. Yeah, I live in Britain. What are the chances? What are the chances of a tsunami? Okay, even if you live in Britain, you have chances of tsunamis. There is records from about the 1700s of people who worked the land explaining what they saw. And they saw a lot of water coming in. They saw knives dancing on the top of the sea. Now, this is a telltale sign, if you talk to any tsunami experts, that sometimes when the tsunami's coming in, the way it's churning, makes little spikes, and the sun catches on these little spikes, and they look like knives, swords, daggers jutting up out of the sea, catching the light and coming in. Okay, there are other telltale signs of what said this tsunami came in. It came rushing up the Bristol Channel. If you know England at all, that's the big opening above the little foot bit what sticks out in the south west of England and Wales. Okay, the Bristol Channel is that bit. Got Ireland about there. Got a foot bit coming out there, and then you've got Wales about there. Okay, and it might be flipped around on my camera. If it is, unflip it. And the water came rushing in. They know this because all the stones, all the big boulders in and around the Bristol Channel, all point in the same direction. Okay, it's like a weather vane. You have a big flat bit on the weather vane and a little pointy bit. Now what happens is when the wind blows the big flat bit round until it's facing the direction of the wind, because the wind's going either side of it instead of hitting the side of it. Okay, the big boulder's done exactly the same thing. You had a pointy boulder, and it gets hit by the water and it spins round. So as the water comes in, it goes through the little pointy bit, leaving the bag bit. So all the boulders were pointing the same way. Thus, tsunami came in. Okay, this came in from a big landslide on the continental shelf. Okay, after an earthquake, miles away from England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, and probably close to southwest Ireland. You can find this. You can go onto Google Maps, go onto the British Isles, go to the southwest of Ireland, move down and west a little bit, go south and west a little bit from the southwest of Ireland, and you will find what looks like a river delta in the continental shelf. And that was the landslide. Okay, there are records of sand deposits going all the way across Scotland, okay, from much further back than the 1700s. And I think it was 1700s, maybe it was the 1600s. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a historian. Okay, I saw a documentary. I think it was on the BBC, and that was about it. Okay, the Bristol Channel one. Now, I watch lots of documentaries and things. Another one, sand all over Scotland. And when they done core samples, they found this sand. They puzzled why, how did this sand get there? It's the same sand on the west coast as it is on the east coast. It's deeper on the east coast than it is on the west coast. And eventually they came up with the conclusion, it must have been a tsunami. It was a landslide in Norway. Okay, basically a huge slump of rock, mountain, if you will, comes sliding down, moved all the water, sent a tsunami right across Scotland. Just ponder that for a minute. Scotland is one of the highest areas in England, or in Britain. Okay, it was right across there. So there's that one. There is also evidence that going way back now, like to, shall we call it prehistoric times, end of the Ice Age. Yeah, there was a big area what connected Denmark to England and sort of northern France to England. It was called the Dogger. Okay, the area was called Dogger. And there is still remnants of Dogger around. You can't see it anymore. It's under the sea. But there is, if you listen to the shipping forecast for England and Britain, there's a place called Dogger Bank, okay, which is an area within the North Sea, and that used to be a thriving Bronze Age community. Okay, so no, maybe not prehistory, maybe it's Bronze Age, late Stone Age. Okay, and that got hit by a tsunami. There is evidence of this as well. And again, this was a landslip underwater this time after an earthquake up near the Faroe Islands, sort of halfway between, I suppose, the Faroe Islands and the coast of Scotland and Norway. Okay, so again, go onto Google Maps, have a look. You probably see a scar in the topography there. Okay, so there you go. You thought you were safe in England from tsunamis. No, you're not. Because, yes, a tsunami, Japanese word, sounds Japanese. Okay, it's mainly because the Japanese are good at keeping records of these events, their earthquakes, their volcanic eruptions, their tsunamis, the great massive earthquake what happened in the west coast of the Pacific west coast, Cascadia, okay, Cascadia fault line. Now the last time that went off was 1700, maybe 1701, 1700. Now the reason we can actually say to a year, okay, these other ones I mentioned, roundabouts, yeah, 1500, 1600, 1700. It's a bit of a guesswork, okay. But the reason we pin this down to an exact year, in fact possibly an exact day, is because of the Japanese. And they had this big thing called an orphan wave come in, and this orphan wave was a big tsunami what came out of nowhere. There was nothing to tell the Japanese that this tsunami was coming. Yeah, normally earthquake, volcanic eruption. Okay, they know these things. They've been living with these things for hundreds of years, centuries, probably actually by that time millennia. Okay, and this one just came in out of nowhere. Now they didn't know where it came from. That's why they called it an orphan wave. It had no parents, but it came from the west coast of the Pacific, or the west coast of America, Eastern Pacific, if you will. If you're looking at the Pacific as a region, Eastern Pacific, Western America, and it was the Cascadia fault going, a big, massive magnitude 9. Now, the geologists in America had found evidence of something happening around, again, they didn't know exactly when, they couldn't date it down to a time, an exact year, because of the dating is not that precise, but they knew something had happened. They had found trees that had died from salt. They had found salt lakes miles away from the sea. Okay, and it's like, well, how did these get here? And they came up with the conclusion there must have been a tsunami at some point. But it was the Japanese who turned around and said, yeah, could have been the one in 1700, 1701, because, well, we got a record of an orphan one. It came from somewhere. It came from the east, which means it came from your west. It could have been that. Okay, so there you go. There are records again. Now, obviously, we know about tsunamis. They're still sort of big in our minds because of the Boxing Day tsunami and the things like that, which killed hundreds of thousands of people, over 250,000 people that killed. Okay, tsunamis are big, nasty killers. And it is something worth being prepared for. Yes, you're thinking it's a once in a lifetime thing, what might happen. Yeah, you tell that to the people who were hit in Boxing Day. It's their once in a lifetime. They've had it. But there's still a chance of it happening again in the same area. Volcanoes still erupt. They erupt all the time. Earthquakes still happen. They happen all the time. Yes. Does lightning strike in the same place twice? I leave that for you to decide. But if you are living on a coastline or even up a major river, which can just literally funnel the tsunami up, which makes it worse, okay, because instead of having a tsunami this big, hitting an area this big, it's then going up, let's do it that way, a big bit like that, yeah? All the width of my camera there is now going up to a tiny little bit there. It raises up as it goes up the river. It makes it worse going up rivers. Things to think about. Okay, power. Yep, you can kiss that goodbye. That's going to be knocking down power cables and all sorts of things. Sewers. Yep, that water is going to rush into our sewer systems. It's going to push everything in our sewer systems out of our sewer systems. All the water around you is going to be polluted by us, our waste, animal waste off the fields. It's going to be polluted by the dead. It's going to be polluted with oils, diesels, other nasty petroleums which have come out of cars and things. It's washed away. Possibly smashed up boats have also let their fuels out as well. Other things you have to think about is if a lot of this water is hanging around in low areas, well, it could have transported other stuff in with it. Yeah, it is not within the realms of possibility that if there's a new lake formed because of a tsunami, then there could possibly be a rogue shark in there. Just bear that in mind as well if you're thinking, oh, it's a new lake, I'll go swimming in that. There's a hungry shark. Okay, so things like that. Okay, it's a long shot. Okay, and so's the tsunami in the first place. Okay, I reeled off 3 tsunamis which I know have hit Britain at various different points. Yeah, and they're spanning from the Bronze Age, okay, in the end of the Stone Age, beginning of the Bronze Age, right up to the end of the Middle Ages. That's a long time period. We're talking 1,000 years plus, maybe 2,000 years. Okay, but there's other places. Japan, they get their tsunamis quite often. They get a lot of them. So you've got to think about what you can do to prepare for tsunamis. Well, if you feel like there might be a tsunami, have a boat ready. Okay, don't have to be really seaworthy. Okay, you're not really thinking about getting washed back out to sea. There is a risk. It could happen. Okay, if not a boat, something floatable. Second story. Think of escape routes to get you to the highest ground as quick as you can. Okay, we are talking about possibly like 10-meter high tsunamis. Just to give you some concept of what a 10-meter high tsunami will be. A 10-meter high, we're talking about 30 foot. Now, the average house, the average room in a house is about 8 foot, I suppose, from floor to ceiling. And then you've got a little bit between the floor or the ceiling and the floor above that. So the second story is up to about 16 foot. We're about halfway up there. We're about 5 meters high now. And then you've got a pitch on your roof, which is probably about a third of the third of a house or a third of a floor. So, yeah, okay, we're talking 8 foot, 16 foot, plus another 6 foot, 26 or 22 feet. God, I can't add up. Let's hope I don't need maths to survive. So 22 feet. 22 feet, we're looking at, well, 5, 6, 7, about 7 meters. 7 meters high. So possibly, if you're standing on your top of your chimney as a 10-meter tsunami comes in, it's going over your head. It's food for thought. Now, not all tsunamis will be that high. So we have volcanic eruptions and we have landslides and earthquakes which create tsunamis, and they set their buoys off. They put tsunami alerts out. Obviously, this is more in the Pacific than anywhere else because, well, there's the Ring of Fire around there. It's a lot more active. It happens a lot more often. So obviously these safety measures, these safety buoys are put out there, and it might end up hitting Hawaii being a meter high, and that's up to your hip. Okay, it's not going to come inland too far. Most sea defences are higher than a metre. Most sea defences will handle that tsunami. Maybe up the rivers you might get a bit of localised flooding on the floodplains because, well, that's what floodplains are there for. That's how they developed. Normally flooding coming down the river the other way, but they work both ways. It will allow that tsunami to flood outwards and reduce all its energy. Okay, I'm just going to put you on pause for a second while I clear my throat out. Yeah, okay, so I'm back. So yes, so possibly think about having a blow up something, a boat or some form of a buoyancy aid within your reach. Okay, this could be just a canoe somewhere. It could be a boat on the back of a trailer on your drive. Yeah, obviously you have to think about actually getting the tsunami warning. Now, a lot of this, especially in places where aren't used to having tsunamis, this is going to come down to you. You're going to have to look after yourself on this. You're going to have some sort of earthquake alert, or if you have volcanoes near you, a volcanic eruption alert. Okay, because as I said, these things can create them. Now, obviously, if the earthquake is a land-based epicenter, probably not going to cause a tsunami for you. Maybe in rivers and lakes, but they're only going to be little ones because there's only a small amount of water there to actually create the tsunami. And so, but the bigger ones out to sea, yeah, and we're talking anything about magnitude 5 and above, okay, can create a tsunami, can create a landslip, can create the old of the land, depending on what sort of fault line it is. Now, obviously, I'm based in England, Britain, so we don't have many of the fault lines what do that. We have a lot of fault lines what do that. Okay, so we're not so bad with that. But there could be, what was I thinking? A landslip, which has caused a few of the ones, or a landslide in a totally different country. Watch out, not just in your country, don't watch out for the earthquakes there. Watch out for the earthquakes in other places. If there's a big earthquake in Norway, then maybe think about, oh, do I need to get my boat ready just in case? Timing, it could happen at any time, day or night. It wouldn't hurt just to go out, spend the weekend on your boat, in your drive. Okay? You could practice sailing it. And yes, your neighbours might look at you strange. But when that water comes rushing in, they probably won't look at you as strange as they were. They'll be thinking, hello, they had their heads screwed on. Did they know something was coming? We didn't? Shit. Wish I got in my boat. Wish I had a boat. So, we have that as well. What else can we talk about tsunamis? Obviously, if you feel that you might be in a tsunami prone zone, you can go and find apps on your phone or look for websites on the internet, and that will tell you, well, not tell you, that will tell you the elevations you're at. Obviously, the higher your elevation, the bigger the tsunami you are likely to withstand. If you are sitting at 100 meters above sea level, okay, you're likely to withstand 100-meter tsunami. No, you won't. Because you've got to think that tsunami might be 100 meters. 100 meters is a huge height. Yeah, it's a stupidly huge height. That would come in. That would probably, I don't know. I don't know the exact maths of it. But you have to remember, yeah, if your 100 meters is like that and you're here, yeah, and that tsunami is hitting here, yeah, that's probably going to literally flatten down on top of you as it hits the coastline and flattens down. So it's not just your height, it's how far away from the coastline you are as well. And there is probably some formula out there. It's way out there. You can go to this guy called Ben Davies. He's on Space Weather News. I think you will find him on YouTube. He has lots of videos. He has this huge theory about how the world is going to change in about the next 15 to 20 years. Part of that is all about a huge tsunami is going to happen. It's a two-stage tsunami. The first one will be like a high tide what don't stop for about 24 hours. Yeah, the tide just keeps coming in and coming in and coming in. And he has a calculator, or he has worked out a formula to give you a miles plus your height in feet. And if it's over 5,000, I think it is, you will be safe from this forever coming in high tide. And then the slosh back, what happens after that high tide. If the water keeps creeping up and creeping up and creeping up and then stops, well, all that water has to go back down. That creates a massive tsunami going the other way. So that is that. You can go onto his site. You can find his video where he explains that. He's also on X. You could probably go on there, throw him a message and say, could you help me with the tsunami calculator? And he will probably throw you a link to the video, what has it in. Okay, he's a nice guy. He's a bit salty on his lives, but that is to try to toughen us up. So I'll leave it at that. Other things you can do, if you think you're in the zone, the first thing to do is check out the floodplains in your river. Are you in a floodplain? Lots of development has happened in floodplains recently. And basically, you can find a floodplain really, really easy. What you do is you find where the river is and you find that flat area next to the river before the slopey bit. Okay, so river, flat area, slopey bit. The flat area, that's the floodplain. That would be the bit what normally floods during your standard winter melt-offs, or standard winter storms, standard spring storms, which bring in all the water, depending on where you live, what your climate's like, and all that. Now, here's another little mind-blowing fact for you. Just recently, you might have heard of a landslide over in Switzerland, and during this little chat I'm going to say, I'll probably remember the name of the village and blurt it out to you. It begins with B. That's as much as I can remember at the moment. And this landslide, it was literally the top of a mountain. Okay, I think 85 feet of mountain, I think it was, which fell down on top of a glacier, which brought the glacier down. Now, luckily, one person was missing from this. I say luckily, it was unlucky for that one person, and it's still not a nice thing to talk about because someone expired, but he was in what was classed by the professionals as a safe zone. They did not think the landslide would get to that area, and that's why he was not evacuated. And it did get to that area. In fact, by the time all that crap had come down off the mountain along with the glacier, it had covered 2.5 kilometers. Okay, about, what's that, 1.5 miles of the valley. It had spread that far out. Now, if you can imagine, that valley was full of water. That valley was a mountain lake. Yeah, that would have displaced 2.5 kilometers of water as that was coming down. That would have made a tsunami starting with 2.5 kilometers wide, at which point it only expands out. The more it expands out, the more power it loses. Okay, because obviously there's a distance to height ratio involved in that. I don't know the maths on that. Find a tsunami expert, they will tell you a maths on that. If you happen to be a tsunami expert watching this, please feel free, drop it in the comments, let me know what that formula is. I will be fascinated by it. I'm sure my viewers will be fascinated by it. And you can even whack out a video link in that comment as well. You have my permission to do so. Not sure how YouTube feels about people putting links in their videos or their comments, but hell, try it anyway. If not, just say, come and find me on my channel and I'll explain it all to you, because I'm sure an expert would explain it better than I do. So anyway, getting back to it, I keep deviating from it. If you think you live in a floodplain or an area which is susceptible to tsunamis, well, you've got to think about the what to do when the alarm goes, what to do when you find out one's coming into you. Find the high ground, have your route, know how long it takes you at the busiest time of day to get to your high ground. Because trust me, if there's an alert going out on everyone's mobile phones in an area saying, seek high ground, you have 20 minutes before a tsunami hits, which we predict is going to be 5 meters high. Yeah, half a house high. Then, yeah, it's going to be a bit trafficky out there, isn't it? It might get to the point where it would be quicker to walk or jump on a bike and so on. So take that into account. If you think there's going to be a small tsunami coming in, keep all your preps high up. If you have a 2-story house, if you have 2 floors, I don't. I live on a ground floor flat. I have nothing above me except for, well, someone else's house, actually. But it is the way it is. We take where we can get when we can get it. And so when you think about maybe you're getting hit by a tsunami or any other form of flood, it doesn't have to be a tsunami. Yeah. I don't want my toilet rolls. I don't want my goods which could be contaminated by sewage water at ground level. That's the first place where that water is going to hit. If it gets into my house, it's going to be on the ground. Okay, I want them as high as I can get. So my toilet rolls go up in places. I put them on top of cupboards, on top of shelves. Okay, things which are in perishable bags, cardboard boxes, yeah, cereals up high. Ideally, your tin foods up high. Yes, it could be polluted water from our own sewage, but it would also probably be salty water from the body of water, which is actually spawning the main flood, in this particular case, a tsunami. So that's going to eat away at those cans. Yes, the cans might not be damaged outright right from the start of it, okay, but the damage is there. It's going to start eating away at them. You might have had 10 years of life in that can after it's been exposed to salty water for a day or two, for obviously that water to recede as well. You might be down to 2 or 3 years of life in that can, okay, and you run the risk of it being contaminated as well. Yeah, it could eat through. It only takes one little spot. Trust me, I work with metal. I am a carpenter by trade. I work with wood, but I work with metal in my current employ. And yeah, it's amazing how quick rust actually starts attacking things. We on a recent job, we painted all this metal, and it got put outside to wait to be delivered. And 2 days later, it was like, I have to take that back in. I have to repaint that. That's got rust on it. I have to treat that rust, clear that rust, because of one tiny little spot what got missed when we were painting, and it's kind of ruined the whole lot. We're gonna have to take it all back in, redo it all. It's the way it is. One tiny little spot, one little kink in the armor. Everyone always says, look for the kink in the armor. Look for the kink in their armor. There must be something which you can work against them. It's exactly the same. Yeah, water is a wonderful thing at getting in everywhere. It goes for the route of least resistance every time. It's like air, it's like gas. Route of least resistance. So just, yeah, keep it high off the ground. Obviously, there are other things you can do if you have your own property or you live in a property where your landladies and landlords don't mind you doing pretty much anything you want. Well, you can sandbag. You can build retaining walls around your property in such a way that these floods won't actually come in. Here's an ideal one, and because I'm not the sort of person who edits in loads of fancy photos and fancy video clips into my videos, I am just a talking head in this particular video. I mean, the talking head in most of my videos on this channel anyway. In my other channel, I'm just a voice. You don't see me, you just see the tarot cards. But anyway, let's get back to it. Yeah, go and obviously, again, Britain. I live in Britain, so I use Britain as my keystone when I do all this. Go and look for a place called Stokesby on your Google Maps. Zoom in to where the river is, and there's a pub called the Ferry. And then check the walls around between the Ferry pub itself and the river. And you will find that the wall goes along and then stops, and then there's a flight of stairs. And then the wall starts again, and they overlap, and then it carries on. Okay, it gives an extra, well, I don't know, in that particular case, about 2 to 3 foot, so up to about 1 meter of water rise from the river, because they're not worrying about so much a tsunami getting them, they're worrying about just general high tides with certain moon cycles making that high tide even more, and with after a storm, the water coming from downstream, yeah, from upstream downstream, hitting the high tide itself creates a blockage, and the waters rise and normally flood the banks. The floodplains start doing their thing. They start dispersing that water over a wider area. So to combat that, they have put a big retaining wall around there, so it has to rise even higher still before it starts trickling into their land. And it gives them extra time to actually prep for this and put out sandbags to stop the water from coming in through the doors. And they're like, why do sandbags work? Even though they think, well, it's a bag full of sand. How's that going to stop it? Well, A, the sand sort of absorbs the water a little bit, and B, water likes the route of least resistance. It will eventually work its way through those sandbags, but it will much prefer to just go round them. So it does. It goes round and round until it finds a place it can just pour in, and then it pours in. So there we go. What else? Current tsunami threats. Obviously, we have Japan, we have the Pacific. Anywhere around the Pacific, if you live on the west coast of America, west coast of South America, east coast of Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, India to a certain extent, maybe the west coast of the east coast of Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii. Okay, basically anywhere around there, you have a threat of a tsunami every year. Okay, that area normally gets at least a 1 magnitude 7 earthquake every year. A magnitude 7 earthquake, when it makes the land do that, is making a big tsunami. It's making a Boxing Day tsunami. I wish I could remember when that Boxing Day tsunami was, instead of just keep referring it to as the Boxing Day tsunami. I tell you what, if you know when it was, drop it in the comments. Show me how smart you are, because clearly I'm being quite thick at the moment. So there is a forever presence. Oh, Japan. I miss Japan. They get it as well. So there is a forever presence of a tsunami in those regions. And, well, everyone who lives in those regions knows about it. But you might not, because you don't live in that region. And if you're holidaying in that region, well, I would suggest you prepare yourself by learning what the locals do in the tsunamis. What are we meant to do? What the alert system sounds like for a tsunami. Here we go. Hawaii had a huge fire, killed a few people, maybe quite a lot. I don't know the exact numbers. My light just died, but that's okay. We'll just keep going with the light we've got. That's fine. I'll sit here. It's quite good here. And I will stop rocking, hopefully, because of it. So, yeah, big fire. One of the things which went wrong in that fire, no, I can't think what it's called. Lahaina fire. Okay, one of the things that went wrong in that fire was the fact that the sirens they used were the same sirens they use for their tsunamis. People didn't know which way to run. Some people ran back towards the problem, back towards the fire, because they suddenly thought there's a tsunami coming as well, and I need to get to high ground. Now, that is a terrible situation to be in, and by accident. Just imagine if the fire was there and a tsunami was coming. Tsunami could put the fire out, but the thing is, you're going to be running into that fire because it's on the high ground. Okay, so yeah, that is that. So get to know where you're going on holiday if it's in a risk area, and not just tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanoes, anything else, hurricanes, tornadoes. If you're heading over to the Americas, okay, not mainly North America, I suppose, but still the Americas. I'm sure South America gets hit by hurricanes as well. They may call it something different: typhoons, cyclones. Okay. Other regions where there can possibly be future tsunamis. The Atlantic Ocean. Okay, it's a huge body of water. And thinking about the Atlantic Ocean, it made me suddenly think of another thing which can create tsunamis, but I'll cover that in a second. There's an island called La Palma, I think it is. It's in the Canary Islands. It's a teardrop-shaped volcanic island. And coming down from the cone of the currently active, I say active, it's not a dormant volcano. It's one what erupts every now and then. Yeah, so from that cone going down to the teardrop shape at the bottom of the island is a crack. Okay. Geologists are all quite in agreement that at some point in the future, one side or both sides of this island is just going to shear off the mountain or the volcano and go plummeting into the Atlantic Ocean. That's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, it might be the other side, what goes down into the shallower part, which will create a smaller tsunami affecting a different area. It would affect Africa and the Canaries more than anywhere else. But that can backwash out as well and round and create tsunamis which would affect sort of like southern South America and northern North America. But if the worst case scenario happens and the, let me get my geography right here, the western side of it falls off and goes into the Atlantic Ocean, which is going to be a lot deeper on that side, displacing a lot more water, creating a much bigger tsunami, then the places which could be hit by that is the eastern seaboard of America. I'm not picking out one little place in the eastern seaboard of America, all of the eastern seaboard of America. Okay, the other places will be hit by that, the Caribbean. Now, the Caribbean is made up of two different types of islands, volcanic islands and coral islands. The coral islands are low-lying islands. They will be swamped. If you're on one of them, have a boat, preferably a strong boat. If you're on one of the volcanic islands, well, you got a chance to scramble up the mountain and hopefully be high enough out of the range of the water. Plus, the other thing is, with a tsunami, you got a slope like that, and your tsunami is coming up, it's going to go up the slope like that. Now, if you've got a slope like that, a volcanic slope, it goes round it. Okay, so it doesn't actually wash up a volcano or a mountain sticking out of the sea as much as it does over a flatter area. Okay, so there is that. The other places what will be affected by that, well, the eastern coast of South America will be affected by that. A lot of the southern coast of Africa will be affected by this. And yes, most of Europe will get a backlash of it. I think they predict somewhere in the region of about a 10 to 20 meter. Okay, and we've already discussed what 10 meters is. That's you standing on top of your chimney on a second-story house. Okay, that's your 10 meters, as just general guesses. Okay, I haven't prepped for this. welcome to Primal Preppers. Now, I'm Simon. I'm your host for this, and I don't actually prep for anything. So I didn't go and measure my house and all that for this particular video. Okay, but as I said, I'm in the carpentry trade. I know that a door frame is about 6 foot to 6'6" high, and I know that there's about a foot above that, so I'm looking at 6.5 or 7 to 7.5 feet before I get to my ceiling. So I know I've got about an 8-foot ceiling. It is simple. Okay, simple maths. So to 8 foots, because obviously the floor above me has got the same sort of setup. We've got 16 foot, and we already know that 16 foot is 5 meters. Okay, so then we got the roof, which again, I've gone through this earlier, but I'll go through it again just in case you skipped the first one. I'm going to say your pitch of your roof is probably the third of the size of one of your rooms in your house. So what's a third of 8? We're looking at about, what, 2 3/4. Okay, and so that will be 2.5, 2 3/4, somewhere around there. On top of your 16, that's 18 odd foot. Okay, so we're nearly up to 20 foot. Let's just say we're up to 20 foot because that's only 6 meters high. Okay, 20 foot, 6 meters high. And we're talking 10 foot. So we need another, 4 meters on top of our 6 meters. So it's actually you and your friend on your shoulders on top of your chimney. But anyway, let's get back to what we're talking about. So yes, there is that. That will happen. Now, there is another way tsunamis can happen, and that is through, what's the best way to call it? Spatial impacts. Okay, an asteroid hitting one of our big oceans. It doesn't have to be a big asteroid to make a big tsunami. Just imagine, I don't know, something the size of a bus. It's traveling at immense speed. It's going to push right through that water. It is going to be immensely hot because it has just passed through our atmosphere. So most of the water it passes through, it will evaporate and turn to steam. Okay, which makes it an even bigger hole than the actual initial hole it's making through the water. And all the water around that is all going to backfill in because, well, we've already said it once or twice in this video, water finds the route of least resistance. Now, if there's a big hole, it's going to pour into it. It's not going to go, it's a bit hard to stay away from that. I'm going to stay away from it. No, it's just going to go straight in. Water's lazy. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there at a level. If you mess about with the level, you make waves. If you suddenly make a massive chunk of it disappear somehow, it fills itself in. Okay? It's lazy. It has no structure. You can't build with water unless you freeze it and turn it into something solid. So, excuse me, nearly choked there. So, I'm going to have to clear my throat. Hang on a second. And I'm not going to say that word again, what begins with S and ends in O. Water goes down, asteroid goes down, hits the seabed, and it could possibly still have enough momentum to then plow into the bottom of the seabed, creating a crater, an even bigger hole for more water to rush into. We will be talking about mega tsunamis at this point. Mega tsunamis are the sort of tsunamis that, well, Ben Davison talks about in his Space Weather News. Okay, I do heartily recommend you go, if you have any sort of tsunami issues, go and watch some of that. It'll put most of your tsunami issues to rest because there's a potential of something much bigger coming. So, yes, asteroids creating a mega tsunami. It'll be a big tsunami. It will be affecting probably every coastline around the ocean it's hit, and then probably a few coastlines of neighbouring oceans and seas as well. There has been evidence and records of this, not so much records, but definitely evidence of this over in Australia. There is a series of craters in the, what would that be, southern Indian Ocean, which are heading literally, a run of them head towards Australia, which created massive tsunamis, which washed over some of Australia quite badly, actually. Again, this is pre-Stone Age, Stone Age times, perhaps before humans were in major contention for anything other than scratching their asses in a tree. So, yes, there is evidence for it. There's evidence out there. There's plenty of evidence of asteroid impacts. You got asteroid crater, okay, or meteor crater in Arizona. You got, I can't think, Chichenu, which is the one that killed the dinosaurs. There are even some people out there who says, well, an asteroid hit the planet many, many, many moons ago. It's prophesied in the Bible as such, because it gives you a size of this asteroid in the Bible. Okay, I think this asteroid may be called Wormwood. I'm not entirely sure. If you're into your Bibles, let me know. But it does give you a size. It gives you a size in cubics, possibly. But cubics, we know we can convert that into modern measurements. And there is a formula out there which dictates how big the crater will be if a certain size asteroid hits the ground. And, well, that actually works to the Gulf of Mexico. It works perfectly to the size of the asteroid, which is mentioned in the Bible. Okay, so there you go. That could have been the thing that caused the great floods, you know. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't rain for 40 days. Maybe it was a huge, huge tsunami. Plus, if a massive asteroid that big created the Gulf of Mexico, think how much water would have evaporated. It could possibly have not actually created much of a tsunami at all. The Gulf of Mexico is quite shallow in comparison to other seas around it, in comparison to the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean. And it may have evaporated most of the water. Okay, so you have the displacement of the water going back into the Gulf of Mexico and then sloshing back out into the big open Atlantic Ocean, which would have taken a lot of the energy away from that, because it's like a tsunami happening in reverse. It's going down a hill and then getting absorbed into the general currents of the ocean. Okay, but that much water being evaporated, that much water going up into the atmosphere with a lot of dust and shit from the impact site, which would create rain, could have created 40 days of rain, could have created Noah's flood. Okay, so bear that in mind. The tsunami may hit you in a different way. It might not hit you as a big wall of water coming out from the sea. It may hit you as a huge 40-day rainstorm, which brings us on to other things that could cause that, but we're not going down that. Now, there is obviously the dinosaur crater, the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. I can't remember the sizes of that, but when you start thinking of the Gulf of Mexico might be an impact crater, then that's peanuts, isn't it? And that wiped out 90% of life on the planet when that one happened. There is also up, I want to say the Hudson Bay, possibly in America, North America. You've got this like kind of like squarish type coastline with a huge bite out of the side of it, like the reverse of Norfolk on England. Okay, it's like a huge bite out of it. Could very well possibly be an impact crater. Okay, and again, if you know all about impact craters and asteroids hitting the planet, fill us in the comments. Let us know in the comments. We're getting up to like, 50 odd minutes of me rambling on about tsunamis, and I haven't really given you much in the way of practical help other than have a boat and keep your preps, keep your provisions, keep your safety stuff high in your house. Because tsunamis don't come in small, medium and larges. Okay, the tsunami is a rarity. It happens, well, depending on where you live. Sometimes it may never happen where you live. Not in your lifetime, not in your children's lifetime, not in their children's lifetime, and not in their grandchildren's lifetime. But there's other places where normally at least once a lifetime you have to handle a huge tsunami, around the Pacific Rim, for example. It would be much better to find someone from the Pacific Rim and ask them what they would do and what they do to prepare themselves for tsunamis, because they will have much more knowledge about this than me or anyone else who probably will never actually experience one. Okay, I am limited to certain knowledge. But generally thinking, you're not going to have your electricity. Put your solar generators. If you have solar generators, if you have petrol generators, stick them up high. Have a backup one somewhere where it can be held up high, out of the way, up in the loft, yeah, which you're hardly ever going to use. Now, petrol can, probably not going to be affected straight away. You can grab your petrol can out of the water and use it to fill up your generator or diesel can, whatever you're filling your generator with. Once you get it down out of the loft, you've got your electric back. It's good. You can run something, your electric oven maybe, or your kettle to make soups. Okay. I'm saying okay a lot again. What else can we sort of discuss about it? Yeah, put your sensitive electrical equipment up high. Keep things off the floor. Think about your location. Think about how you can make your location more water resistant to a certain extent. Think about seals on doors, weather seals, draft strips. Are they in good condition? Are you getting a howling gale through your front door during the winter storms? Because if you're getting a howling gale through your front door during winter storms, you're going to have a more intense water flow coming through there. As I said, wind is like water. It takes the route of least resistance. If it's coming through your door, so will the water. Think about getting new weather sealing put on your door. Think about your prepping bunker. If you have made a prepping bunker, where have you made your prepping bunker? Probably like about 99% of everyone else who's made their prepping bunkers, it's buried underground somewhere. Have you got pumps and things to get the water out of there? Because the tsunami might not be the only event what you need it for. Okay, is it airtight? Would you be able to survive in it if there was 10 foot of water above you? Even if it's just for the day, would you be able to survive in it? Have you got enough air in it? Have you got an air intake which is not going to flood and let all the water in? Okay, there is obviously pressure restrictions here. If there's no air to come out, then the water can't get in. It makes a pressure lock. Look into pressure locks for your doomsday bunkers if you are rich enough to have doomsday bunkers. If you are rich enough to have doomsday bunkers, drop a line in the comment and let us know how you got that money. I haven't got that money. I haven't got a doomsday bunker. Okay, something I would like, but how? I'm in a tsunami-prone zone. If a tsunami ever happens in the British Isles, because I live in Norfolk, it's flat. I think the highest point is maybe 20 foot above sea level, and that's probably only 10 miles away from the sea as well. So it's not good for me. But anyway, let's wrap this up. If you have any ideas, if you have any advice you can give the viewers of this video about tsunamis and how to handle them, how to prepare for them, how to survive them, and the like, let me know in the comments and let my viewers know in the comments, and that will be greatly appreciated. I hope you have found this entertaining, if not slightly educational. Obviously, I am Primal Preppers. I am aiming at the people who don't actually deal with the situations we're talking about. So, yes, there could be hundreds of you watching this who all live on that Pacific Ring somewhere, who all have your tsunami plans in place, and you're thinking, he's talking a load of bollocks. It's not for you. Okay, you know about this. This is for the people who haven't ever thought about a tsunami. This is for the people who haven't really thought about anything like that. The ones who walk around with their eyes closed, the ones who just need someone to say something to them to make them think, oh, I never really thought of that. Okay, if you like this video, please feel free, give it a thumbs up, let me know that you liked it. Chuck anything in the comments you want to chuck in the comments, hopefully positive. If you didn't like this video, give it a thumbs down, that's okay. It alerts me that there's something wrong with this video, and you can actually go one step beyond if you like, and let me know in the comments what it was you didn't like about the video, and that actually gives me more of an eye-opener to what I can do to change my videos. I will take it on board and possibly implement it on the next video I do. I am kind of lazy. I won't be editing anything out of this video. The only editing I do is when I pause it when I need to clear my throat. So, okay, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I suggest you subscribe to my channel, because if nothing else, it's good laughing material, isn't it? I'm sure you must have giggled at least once watching me stumble over my own words. Fantastic. Until the next time you are watching one of my videos, you all be good out there and be safe. And remember, if you can think it, it could happen.